Runner for real stunner. I'ma do my numbers. I'm like the glove in his prime, taking the ball from you. I'm a globe trotter. My 3 game off the chain. Man, I'm in the lane. LeBron James, I'ma bang that. Better get out my way. They see it in the stands. With Hamilton with the hands. Truck a slam dunk champ. Big competition, man. Y'all ain't got a chance. Plus, like I hit that 3 with 3 seconds left, and I'm down by 2 in the last of a 7-game series to beat you. Who high? Y'all not.
What is up, guys? It's the Connor Mack Show, and today we're going to break down the Suns' decade of futility, followed by a potential NBA title. Crazy turnaround. Let's break down how it happened. So the post-Steve Nash era in Phoenix led to a decade of just nonsense for one of the most consistently successful franchises in the NBA, as from 1976 to 2010, the Suns missed the playoffs only 7 times. But from 2010 to 2020, it would be 10 straight years of no postseason, and 5 of those years finishing 14th or worse in the West. Part of the reason the rebuild took so long was multiple failures in both the draft and with head coaching hires. Jeff Hornacek was a bit unlucky in missing the playoffs his first season with the Suns because they had a 48-34 record, but from there results would slowly spiral. Add to the fact that the Suns' first-round picks from 2011 to 2013 were Markieff Morris, Kendall Marshall, and Alex Len, meaning that they had no upside with any of their young players. When the Suns broke up the 3-guard trio of Eric Bledsoe, Goran Dragic, and Isaiah Thomas, they kept the worst one and had to watch Isaiah Thomas be an MVP candidate in Boston and Goran Dragic play big playoff games for the Miami Heat. More losing followed by 2014 first-rounders TJ Warren and Tyler Ennis not contributing to the level of impact had them hovering in no man's land in the late lottery, but in 2015 they finally hit on a pick by selecting some Kentucky bench scorer named Devin Booker. Booker struggled his rookie year making an impact anywhere outside of scoring, to the point where they had him play Summer League for a second season to develop. After dominating the 2016 Summer League's first few games, the Suns wisely pulled him out and were focusing on their new first-round pick, Marquise Chriss, a late riser in the draft who was an undersized 4 who couldn't shoot. To make matters worse, after drafting and stashing Bogdan Bogdanovic for 2 years, they traded his rights in the package to Sacramento to land Chriss, and we are now 1.5 out of 6 in drafts from 2011 to 2015 in selecting impact first rounders, as I'll give TJ Warren some credit because he did average 18 a game at one point, but his rookie year was rough. The 2016 draft also saw them draft Dragan Bender at pick 4 in addition to Chriss at pick 8, who was regarded as the best international player for his shooting ability, and after the Kristaps Porzingis hype the year before, there was more buzz than usual around international guys. But it became clear Bender's inconsistent shooting at the NBA level and lack of athleticism made him unplayable, and neither of the top 10 picks panned out. So, in tallying, we are now at 1.5 out of 8 first-round picks from 2011 to 2016 being useful. This would partially be the reason Hornacek was fired and replaced by Earl Watson, who was bad in his own regard but didn't have much talent to work with. One thing Watson, despite being an obvious stopgap coach, did that was good was insert Devin Booker as a full-time starter in 2016-2017. His points per game jumped from 13 his rookie year to 22 points per game in year 2, and they finally rid themselves of the Bledsoe-Brandon Knight nonsense. Booker would also drop 70 in a game this season, and you could see the flashes of a future franchise player, and it was about damn time they had one. The 2016-17 season ended with a 24-58 record, but the number 4 overall pick, which the Suns used to pick Josh Jackson out of Kansas. Jackson flashed in Summer League that year, averaging 17 points per game and showing the two-way ability which he was supposed to bring into the league, but his defensive metrics in his 2 seasons in Phoenix were awful, and his shooting numbers didn't cover up for that. So 1.5 out of 9 productive first-round picks in 6 years is a hilariously bad return, and Earl Watson was replaced by Jay Triano after giving up 130 to a Lakers lineup that looked like this. Booker was now averaging close to 25 a game and was clearly the best on the team, but the critics were blaming him for being an empty stats player with no shred of context to those criticisms. The Suns finally got some good fortune in landing the 2018 first overall pick, which they used to select DeAndre Ayton first overall, a move in which was met with skepticism due to Ayton's situation in Arizona and his below average defensive reputation. To make matters worse, for much of his rookie year, like almost all young bigs do, he had a slow development year and had to watch as Luka Doncic was tearing it up from the jump in Dallas. The move was also puzzling because they had hired Igor Kokoshov as head coach, who was Luka's head coach for Slovenia when they won the Eurobasket 2017 title. The Suns acquired Villanova swingman Mikal Bridges from the Sixers on draft night with the 10th pick, and Ayton and Bridges would later provide much needed balance to complement Booker, but it would take a few years. It would be a painful 19-63 season in 2018-2019, but I guess that's what you would expect when Tyler Johnson is your highest paid player at nearly $19 million a year. Going into the 2019 offseason, it was clear that the Suns were starting to seriously upgrade their roster with talent due to their large amount of cap space. When Kelly Oubre started to make a leap, TJ Warren was shipped to Indiana, and the Suns brought in veterans Ricky Rubio and Aaron Baines to help accelerate this process. They hired the steady Monty Williams as head coach and selected North Carolina's Cam Johnson with the 11th pick, which was widely criticized because he was one of the oldest draft-eligible players and wasn't regarded as a lottery talent. But the Suns saw he shot 45% from 3 and had size, two things vitally important in the modern game. So at long last, the Suns in 2019-2020 had their first sign of relevance in nearly 9 years, as a late season bubble run and semi-breakouts from Kelly Oubre, DeAndre Ayton, and Devin Booker led them a game short of qualifying for the postseason. This is because Ayton got suspended for 25 games earlier in the season, and they would for sure have been a playoff team if he was there. But with a lot of momentum starting to build, the Suns still faced tough roster decisions that summer. Oubre and Baines were both due for big extensions, and Oubre was seeking a lot of money. Despite him averaging close to 18 a game, he was a bit of a ball stopper, and new general manager James Jones wanted to insert Mikal Bridges as a full-time starter due to his budding defensive potential. The Suns traded Oubre and Rubio to acquire Chris Paul, and thus would see their offensive efficiency the following season improve across the board, and especially where it counts in the playoffs, from the mid-range. Chris Paul shoots over 50% from most spots in the mid-range, and Booker during the 2021 season shot 48% on mid-range jump shots. With the addition of Paul, the Suns played at a slower pace but found better results, as their offensive rating jumped nearly 7 points, and center DeAndre Ayton's field goal percentage improving from 54% to 62% just in one season. With two dominant guards, an efficient center, wing shooters and defenders in Johnson and Bridges, they still needed somebody else to glue it all together, and that guy was Jay Crowder. Signed away from the Heat, Crowder provides the modern prototype of power forward, a guy who can stretch the floor, defend, and be versatile. James Jones won Executive of the Year because he maximized the roster around their young talent, and to top it off, found backup point guard Cameron Payne and turned his career around from a dancer and a future Uber Eats driver to a legitimate backup point. The Suns won 51 games and are on the brink of the franchise's first title so quickly because Jones quickly figured out how to best feature Booker and Ayton, and they finished 3rd in the league in assists and 4th in point differential. But even before these playoffs started, the Suns only had the 7th highest odds to win the title. Injuries to opponents have helped them, but I don't think Suns critics would have viewed this team as a one-off fluke if they had made noise in the playoffs last year. They can become only the 3rd team to win the title after missing the playoffs the year prior, and while people give credit to Chris Paul for elevating them, this process didn't happen overnight. It took years of Booker and Ayton dealing with historically bad coaches, roster management, and ownership, so even at the young age of 24, they've already been through the NBA mud. And when you look at it that way, a deep playoff run was always a possibility, but it just needed some guidance from two steady people to level the ship, which is why Jones and Williams couldn't have showed up at a better time. Paul and the Suns both found each other at the right time as well, and the force multiplier from that could be an NBA title. Crazy shit, isn't it? Hey guys, I appreciate you checking out this video. If you like that, stay tuned for more NBA content. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know if you think the Suns will finish this off and win the title.